Tonight on SpeedWeek, an exclusive interview with recently indicted NHRA Pro Stock champion Darrell Alderman.
This thing is like being in a tunnel and there's no light at the end.
Jeff Bodine answers the discontent rumors with a poll at Darlington.
Hey guys, keep talking. That just gets me more determined to prove everybody wrong.
And Tripp goes for a record as Saturday Night Thunder returns. This and more next.
SpeedWeek is brought to you by Dodge. For performance, quality, safety, and value. Welcome home, America.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to SpeedWeek. I'm Bob Jenkins. Defending NHRA Pro Stock champion Darrell Alderman remains free on $10,000 bond following his arraignment last week in Lexington, Kentucky. The 41-year-old construction company owner, accompanied by his lawyer and wife, appeared before federal magistrate James Cook and pleaded not guilty to charges of conspiracy to distribute and possession with the intent to distribute cocaine. A trial date is expected to be set next week. Now, Darrell has agreed to join us from Lexington with the first on-camera interview since the indictment was handed down. Darrell, thanks for joining us. I know it's a very emotional time for you. Although you have pleaded not guilty to the charges, I think all of us would like to hear you say that you're not guilty.
Well, I'm definitely not guilty, and on the advice from my attorney, Derek Gordon, here in Lexington, Kentucky, our plea was not guilty.
Where were you and when did you first learn about the indictment, and what was your initial response to it?
I was at home in Moorhead, Kentucky with my family, and Derek gave me a call and told me that I was going to be indicted, and it was very shocking to me, and my family is taking this thing extremely hard, and we're just going to have to fight this thing and go on.
Did you know about the indictment at Gainesville where you lost your first race of the year?
I did know about it before the race in Gainesville, and I really don't think that this had any effect at all on my driving. Even though we did lose in the final to WJ, I had a good reaction time, and the car just slowed down a little bit in the final round, and that was the reason that we got defeated.
How are you holding up emotionally at this time?
Well, I'm certainly not holding up 100%. I'm doing my best. It's hard to sleep at night. All I can think about is this thing. It's like being in a tunnel, and there's no light at the end. But I'll come out all right.
There are rumors that your bond was $1 million. Chrysler was withdrawing their support from you, and the NHRA is going to take away your 1990 championship. Are any of these rumors true?
They're certainly not true. NHRA is going to let me remain racing until this case is concluded. And my bond was only $10,000. It wasn't $1 million.
Is this going to affect your immediate plans to defend your Pro Stock championship?
Well, I certainly hope it won't affect my plans to defend my championship in 1990. If I do not do my job in the car correctly, I'll step aside. But even though I think I can remain the 1991 world champion.
Darrell, in closing this interview, what would you like to say to your race fans?
Well, I certainly appreciate all the fans' support, and I hope that this support continues, and just hang in there with me.
Darrell, thanks for joining us, and our best to you in the coming months.
Thank you very much.
The next NHRA race is next weekend, the Winston Invitational at Rockingham, North Carolina. Well, after a 3-week hiatus, the NASCAR Winston Cup Series resumes tomorrow with its 5th race of the year, the Trans-South 500 from Darlington. It's ESPN's first NASCAR telecast of the year, and as usual, Benny Parsons will be a part of the broadcast team. And he's standing by there with an update on what's happening at the track Too Tough to Tame. Benny?
Thanks, Bob. During our spring break, a lot of teams came to Darlington testing for this race, and last year's pole winner for the event, Jeff Bodine, was the quickest. And guess what? It worked. Jeff Bodine is once again the pole sitter for the Trans-South 500. His speed, 161.939 miles per hour.
We worked hard to get the car that fast. I worked hard to drive it that fast. No guarantees in this business. We tested. This is the same car, believe it or not, we ran Atlanta with. How many laps down was at Atlanta? 5, 6? I couldn't drive the car to Atlanta. That's how bad it was. We came here and tested. Junior worked on a car. Tim Brewer, the whole guys at the shop, and we must have found out what was wrong with it.
His teammate Sterling Marlin was second, Ernie Irvin is third, Ken Schrader fourth, and Harry Gant will start fifth. 1990 Winston Cup champ Dale Earnhardt will start seventh, and the fellow who finished second, Mark Martin, will start 12th. One of the main topics of conversation for the past couple of weeks is still the disharmony on the Jack Roush team. Remember in Atlanta when Mark Martin made a pit stop, they left a wrench that's used to adjust the wedge in the car. Well, that led to the dismissal of crew chief Robin Pemberton, his brothers Ryan and Roman. Well, later, team manager Steve Mill reinstated Robin.
We're trying too hard. You know, we're all very intense. The principals in this team are really, really intense. We were poised on the edge of greatness, and now it looks like we've fallen off the other side. We don't even know what it is. We're trying hard. We're going to fix it. It's certainly not the laborers' fault. You know, they're doing a great job, always have and always will. We're going to fix it, and they need to maintain their confidence.
Bob, as you've been saying for the past couple of weeks, the team is still better off now than it was in 1990. And in 1990, they lost the championship by 26 points. The Pontiac Pacesetters 200 for the Busch Grand Nationals cars was run earlier this afternoon. Dr. Jerry Punch has a report.
Thanks, Benny. For the second consecutive Busch Grand National race, Jimmy Hensley was on the pole and led 39 others to the green, including Dale Earnhardt, who started last because of engine trouble during qualifying. Last year's winner, Harry Gant, brought out the first yellow when his car lost an engine only 19 laps into the race. Just after the green came out, trouble in turn 1. 9 cars were involved in a crash, triggered when Ward Burton got sideways. Earnhardt was among those who just barely escaped. With less than 20 laps to go, Darrell Waltrip spun in turn 4. Ed Ferree was pinned against the wall. Waltrip continued. Ferree didn't, but walked away from the crash. Yet another accident involving Ed Barrier and Clifford Allison caused the race to end under caution. Dale Jarrett became the first repeat winner in Grand National competition so far this year.
We've run it twice now with this new snout on it. 1-2 times. We ought to retire it, I guess. Probably be the only race car that ever retired a winner. Only 2 races that it ran, but we're going to keep running it.
Bob, a couple of late stories. Jake Elder has went to work for Darrell Waltrip on the Western Auto Chevrolet. NASCAR has once again tweaked the pit rules. The odd-even pitting has been thrown out. You can stop and change tires anytime you want on the green. You still have to do it on the green and not the caution flag. And the folks at Richmond announced that the Miller 400 will be run Saturday night, September the 7th. Bob, come on down here, because tomorrow we start the first of 5 straight Winston Cup races here on ESPN.
Thanks, Benny. You can see the Trans-South 500 tomorrow live beginning at 1 o'clock Eastern Time.
SpeedWeek is brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is One Talk Motor Oil. By Dodge. For performance, quality, safety, and value, welcome home, America. And by Dunlop Tires. Dunlop outperforms.
This is Marty Reed in beautiful, albeit wind-blown Miami for the Nissan Grand Prix. Next on SpeedWeek, we'll give you a preview of this week's IMSA Camel GT event.
Tonight's the night that many of you have been waiting on since last August, the return of Saturday Night Thunder. The first 4 events will be USAC Western States midget races from Ventura Raceway in California. Later, the series will return to the Midwest for midget, sprint, and Silver Crown races. Tonight, though, racing history could be made, and for more on that, here's the guy that'll call the action for you, Gary Lee. Gary?
Thanks, Bob. You're right. Tonight's telecast of Saturday Night Thunder could be a record breaker. If Sleepy Trip can win tonight, he would become the winningest driver in the history of USAC midget racing.
Last Saturday night at the Bakersfield Speedway in Oildale, California, Tripp started inside row 3 in the 30-lap feature. Pole sitter Dan Ford took the early lead. Second and third place, Bob Davison in blue and Paige Jones were taken out of contention early when Davison got sideways. It was pretty obvious as Jones came down the straightaway that the encounter caused a handling problem. Tripp chased Ford for 10 laps until Ford bicycled, allowing Sleepy to get the inside line that he used to take the lead. En route to the checkered, the race was halted when Kurt Osterberg flipped in a crash that also involved Jordan Hermansater. Neither driver was injured. Tripp drove to his 131st career USAC triumph in both national and Western States competition, tying him with the late Rich Vogler.
We're going to win 1 at Ventura, maybe 2. You know, it's a tough track, and the pattern I had tonight, this is my Ventura pattern. And I think we'll run our Militech car, Causeway probably at Ventura, and I think we'll get 1 of them, maybe 2.
Also on the cut at Oildale were the TQ midgets. Cal Smith was knocked unconscious in this crash during a heat race. The impact with the wall caused the roll cage to collapse. Smith was trapped in the car for several minutes. He was taken to a local hospital and treated for a bruised vertebrae and later released. Corey Cruzman won the feature. Bob, since the demise of Ascot Park, our series has moved to Ventura Speedway, about 60 miles north of Los Angeles. And despite all the rain over the past 2 weeks, the track crew has done a spectacular job in preparing this quarter-mile dirt oval for tonight's racing competition. And we have one format change over last year's series. Tonight, we will be live for the entire 2-hour telecast. 2 hours of live USAC open cockpit competition at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here on ESPN.
All right, thanks, Gary. The IMSA Camel GT Series returns to Miami this weekend, site of its first temporary street race back in 1983. And our Marty Reed is there. Marty?
Bob, defending IMSA GTP champion Jeff Brabham describes this event as the sports car race in America to win. And he certainly knows the secret. 3 out of the last 4 years, he's crossed the line first. But he's not so sure that he can make it 4 out of 5.
You know, what's happened in the past here doesn't really count this weekend. We have a lot of cars here that are running on a slightly different rules than before, and really I think going into the race, I don't foresee us being the fastest car out there, and but I think maybe we still have a chance to win the race.
Last year, with Drake Olson behind the wheel, the Toyota led the first 43 laps of the Miami Grand Prix until this pit stop. While trying to recapture the lead from James Weaver, the two touched, forcing Weaver to the pits for repairs. Drake continued on, and then a few laps later, tried to take the lead from Bob Wallach.
This battle is for the point. Number 17 is Bob Wallach. The 98 is Drake Olson. Much quicker off that corner. Oh! And Wallach nudges Olson into the concrete.
Toyota did go on to win 4 races last year. That was the second winningest total on the circuit. Is the time right for the team to win its first event in 1991?
We would accept a win this weekend, believe it or not. We feel as though Juan's got the best chance. This is almost his hometown right now.
The promoter of this event, Ralph Sanchez, is also making news. He would like to build a permanent facility, both oval and road course, in the Miami area. But he says he needs some help from the Florida legislature.
So I have asked the state legislature to include the words motorsports facilities in their law. If they approve, we're going to then take the next step and try to see where we place it. And if we're successful in that, then we'll be ready to release something.
A couple of other notes. This weekend, look for new colors on the Gunner Porsche 966, which tested last week at Road Atlanta. Jägermeister, long associated with European Porsche racing, will be on the car for this race. And in the GTO division, Jack Roush will debut the radical new Intelligent Tech Mustangs, complete with a high wing on the rear. Bob, the endurance season is now history, and the drivers are ready to get down to real business. What they feel is the drive towards the championship.
Thanks, Marty. We'll have more Speed Week in just a moment. Here are some late results from IMSA GTP qualifying held earlier today at the Nissan Grand Prix of Miami. The World of Outlaws continued their movement eastward. Last night they were in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and here are the top finishers. The World of Outlaws are also in Tulsa tonight. Last weekend, for the first time this year, the Big Three, Steve Kinzer, Sammy Swindell, and Doug Wolfgang, raced against each other in Texas.
Friday night's B feature. 2 local drivers, Gary Cameron II and David Horton at the front of this pack, had this coming together, which resulted in Cameron going out of the ballpark. He was not injured. In the A main, when Steve Kinzer stopped on the track with mechanical problems, someone accidentally turned on the red light, something that didn't set too well, to say the least, with World of Outlaw president Ted Johnson. Shortly after racing resumed, Swindell took the high side and Wolfgang took the low side around Steve Beitler. The bite was a little better on the inside, and Wolfgang got the lead. What about Kinzer? Well, his handling problems got so bad he just decided to drop out of the race. Wolfgang held on to score his first World of Outlaw win of the year. Wolfie's car owner this year is Max Rogers, who may not have his team at every race. So, Doug, how much are you going to run?
I don't know. He has never run that much, and I got a knack for getting fired, so you never know.
In Saturday's A main, Wolfie passed pole sitter Stevie Smith to take the lead. Swindell would soon take second. The race's only yellow was for Chris Eichert's stalled car in turn number 3. On the restart, watch this move. Sammy blew by Wolfgang down the backstretch, then gave him a brake test protecting the inside groove. It was the brake that Swindell needed to put himself in victory lane for the first time this year.
Made a mistake the other night and left him a hole, but you know, when he left me the hole, I made sure I didn't leave another one behind it.
Despite Steve Kinser's problems, he still leads the points, but by only 46 over his cousin Mark. Steve may not know it yet, but he should be receiving a call from A.J. Foyt soon. The four-time Indy 500 winner is co-promoting 2 USAC Silver Crown races at the Indiana State Fairgrounds 1-mile dirt track this year.
At a news conference earlier this week, it was announced that both the Hallman 100 and the Hoosier 100 will be sponsored by True Value hardware stores. Foyt hopes by inviting Kinser and other open-wheel stars, interest in the race will reach the same level it was when the guys who ran at the Indy 500 also competed at the fairgrounds.
Most of the IndyCar drivers that run today, I think, would be lowest on, a mile dirt. You got a lot of upcoming stars, and like the Kinsers. I mean, they're not upcoming, they're already proven. We're going to do everything to try to get them boys to run with us and, as many of the IndyCar drivers as we possibly can. But like I said, most of them, if you'd put them in a dirt car on a mile dirt, there ain't no telling what would happen.
As for AJ's immediate plans, he's still shooting for a starting spot in the Phoenix IndyCar race coming up in 2 weeks, although he's had little time in the car.
We're just going to have to go to Phoenix, I guess, cold turkey. I went to races that way before. It's going to be tough because everybody's been out there testing their cars, and Phoenix is a very tricky little racetrack to get to handling, so I guess, with time out on us, we're just going to take the new car out there and just see how well I can do, just unload and go racing. And, everybody's run hundreds of miles out there already, but I'm mainly going out there just to make the show and try to finish.
This year's Indy 500 will be Foyt's last as a driver, and already railbirds are wondering how much speeds will increase this year at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Several teams have been testing, with Emerson Fittipaldi still having the unofficial best at 223 miles an hour. That's 2 miles an hour under the track record. But did you know the biggest jump in speed in Indianapolis occurred 20 years ago? Donald Davidson documents the effect aerodynamics has had at the Brickyard.
Engineers and designers had wanted to use real wings for years, but the rules prohibited them. There were various ways around the rule, which more or less stated that any aerodynamic device had to be an integral part of the body. Even so, they still wanted wings, bolted-on wings. In 1971, McLaren looked like it had one, except that it was cleverly molded into the engine cover. Roger Penske had obtained a new McLaren, and with it, Mark Donohue kept upping the speed from day to day until he was at over 181, almost 10 miles an hour above the official record. Well, for 1972, bolted-on rear wings were allowed, and the speeds went out of sight. Bobby Unser's 4-lap qualifying run was almost 196. The pole speed had gone up 26 miles an hour in 2 years. A year later, Johnny Rutherford had a lap at 199. But the Magic 200 was put on hold. Wings were downsized for 1974, restrictions were placed on the turbochargers, and the speeds were pulled down. It would be 1977 and another rule change before Tom Snever would finally break through 200. For SpeedWeek, this is Donald Davidson.
What could be the next step in aerodynamics, and what powers race cars? That coming up next.
Most of the historic video seen on SpeedWeek is courtesy of Dick Wallen's Racing Classics.
Phoenix International Raceway is hosting a one-of-a-kind race this weekend, and it's being compared with the first track races for gasoline-powered cars at Indy and at the Brooklands. Richter Brule has an explanation.
Right now, it is a race against the clock. For these students at Arizona State University, this is not your standard class project. These guys are going racing with a solar-powered car.
Electric cars are, I believe, going to be a fact of life that we're going to have to deal with soon.
Solar electricity and solar cells like these have been around for a long time, but for most people it's simply been a gimmick. But now, with the push to find alternative sources of energy, there is a drive to make these things more efficient and to find practical uses for them.
A solar car is symbolic of solutions for the future in terms of air pollution, in terms of depletion of natural resources.
It was 1987 that racers from around the world went to Australia to compete in the Solar World Challenge. That woke people up to what can be done. Now comes the work of perfecting it.
We're neophytes, really, both in terms of solar water heaters, in terms of photovoltaic systems. We're just at the beginning stages.
These students don't need to reinvent the wheel. They just need to make it a lot more efficient.
You might talk horsepower, but it's more like 1 horsepower, 2. So we're looking at very limited supply of power to use.
And the logical place to perfect this is the racetrack. So like the racers of old, these students are actually automotive pioneers, searching for tomorrow's speed machines. In Phoenix, I'm Rick DeBrule reporting for SpeedWeek.
Last year at the Winston Cup banquet, 3 drivers, Dale Earnhardt, Mark Martin, and Bill Elliott, received $50,000 each for being voted by you, the race fan, to the McDonald's All-Star Race Team. Voting is currently underway to determine this year's winners. Right now, the top vote getters are Dale Earnhardt with 19%, Bill Elliott with 14%, Martin with 12%, and Richard Petty with 10%. To cast your vote, dial 1-900-737-TEAM. Each call costs 99 cents per minute, with no profit going to either McDonald's or ESPN. Voting ends November 3rd.
Ground transportation arranged through General Rent-A-Car, where free unlimited mileage and quality Chrysler cars are just 2 of the reasons people on the move are racing to General.
Congratulations to the ESPN Speed World team for winning 2 Emmys last Monday night in New York City. One was for Best Audio, the other was for this telemetry from Paul Gentilosi's car during last year's SCCA Trans Am telecast from Watkins Glen. The telemetry showed miles an hour, RPM, when Paul was on the brake and when he was on the accelerator, and what gear he was in. Speed World has now won 4 Emmys the last 2 years. And finally, a year ago at this time, race fans were anxiously awaiting the release of Days of Thunder, the Tom Cruise movie about Winston Cup racing. Now, a year later, they're still talking about the movie, but for a different reason. Jay Squires reports on an auction held yesterday at the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
It was NASCAR showbiz for sale, from cars that raced in Days of Thunder to gas cans, trophies, fake compressors, and clothing, racks and racks of it worn at some time during the filming of the movie, all of it up for auction. Racers, race fans, and collectors came from all over the country to bid and buy for whatever reason.
Well, some of it's going to be a gift for my son, who isn't here right now, but he's a race enthusiast, and he'll be crazy to get that stuff.
This helmet and a box full of odds and ends went for $175. Everybody left the auction happy, especially those who needed the racing equipment and found bargains.
I saved $300 or $400, you know, if you need the stuff, which I did. Plus, I got the few shirts and stuff as a bonus.
In Charlotte, this is Jay Squires reporting for ESPN Speed Week.
And that will do it for another edition of Speed Week. Next week, we'll be on at this same time, 7:30 Eastern on Saturday night. Stay tuned for the Mickey Thompson Off-Road Grand Prix from San Diego, followed at 9 o'clock by the return of Saturday Night Thunder. Earlier in the week, Mario Andretti took a ride in last year's World Solar Challenge winner, the Spirit of Bile, at Phoenix International Raceway. And we leave you with a look at how it went. So long, everyone.
Speed Week has been brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. And by Busch Beer. Head for the mountains of Busch Beer.